So I'm just going to have a little recap of the timeline and the sequence of events which have unfolded in the last 5 weeks or so since the council voted to pass the new TRO. So if we start off with a timeline on the 4th of October, of course that's the day that the committee actually sat and voted it through. The committee even concluded with Kindersley saying that they should be fully aware that a judicial review is going to come, and that is the right of people to have a judicial review. And he actually said that he would even fight for that right, because that is a right of all people. And he also said that it's just something that we're going to have to face.
I also regret that I suspect this will again face legal challenges, and that is what we must face as an authority. The appeal that they have, if they don't think we made the right decision, is in the courts, and that is their right. And I would fight for that right, actually.
You see, now I've specifically pointed out that quote just because I find it interesting, and hopefully you will see the relevance too as we go through this frankly sensational series of events which have happened, all within the 6 week time frame of the statutory time allowed for people to file for a statutory review. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I maintain it, and I'm hoping to demonstrate with this timeline that the council have absolutely ram-raided this through. They've speed run it. They were fully aware of the fact that there was a review coming, and they did everything they could to speed the process along so that they basically left us no time to act within the statutory process and the due process of law. And I just find it interesting that somebody would say that it is their right to have judicial review, and that he would actually fight for their right to have judicial review. And it seems that since these protests over the last few days have kicked off, the one thing that the councillors are not doing is fighting for the residents' right to have a judicial review. In fact, they seem to be fighting tooth and nail to remove them of that right. Anyway, let's get on with the timeline. Just a second. Okay, so where was I? Excuse me a moment. Okay, so I've talked about the 4th of October. The 4th of October was when the committee actually voted. Now, the 11th of October is the next important date on the timeline. This is the date that the TRO was officially signed and sealed, which actually begins the 6 week window of opportunity for residents to file for statutory review. Now, the 6 week window wasn't actually given to us fully, you see, because while the council signed and sealed the TRO on the 11th of October, they never told anybody that until 13 days later. And 13 days is a very specific number and also very relevant, because if you look at the regulations which bind councils, they must by law inform objectors of TROs of the signing of a TRO within 14 days, you see. So they waited until the very last moment that they had to by law tell everybody, including us. So on the 23rd, 24th of October, I think, is at about 10 minutes to 6, which is the last possible moment that they could legally have waited until. That's when they sent out the notice to the objectors that the TRO had actually been made. So the 6 week time window, which we should have been given by law, was actually only a 4 week time window. And something else which happened a couple of days before this, which is also relevant, I want to point out, this all started because we were waiting, basically, until the moment that the TRO was sealed, so that we could be ready with a pre-action letter to send off at the same day, because we were trying to do it. We were trying to be ready and prepared, but they basically pipped us to the post, as it were, by not informing us until 14 days later. Anyway, so it was Matthew Winterholt on Nextdoor who actually divulges the timeline, saying that the TRO had been sealed on the 11th and that the work was going to begin in November, and that was the first that any of us had heard about it. And I wrote an email to Democratic Services saying, hey, is it true that you've sealed the TRO, because nobody was told about it? And then the reply I got back was, Mr. Bennell, I'm advised that you are due to have your notice tomorrow, which was on the 13th day. So this whole thing had been planned, obviously. They'd calculated that. So that's the 4th October, 11th of October, 23rd and 24th of October. This is when we first learned that the TRO had already been made, and so we only had 4 weeks to file for review. But then at the same time, we also learned that the works had been scheduled to begin on the 11th of November, which was 2 weeks before the end of the 6-week deadline. So instead of having 6 weeks, we had 2 weeks, because of course we would need to file for review in order to get an injunction to stop the works, because until the files before the papers had been filed, there would be no claim to make, and therefore no injunction could be sought to stop the works, because they're just happening. So that was all around the 25th of October. Okay, and it's at that point that we sort of had to scramble and spring into action to start the process of getting this thing written up. So the instruction was given to the barrister to write the pre-action letter, and at the same time as this, we had to start a new separate formalised group, which we called Friends of Mill Road 2, which had to have a separate bank account and a new GoFundMe and everything like that, because this was what Pam wanted, because she didn't want anything to do with it anymore, which we all respected, but it did cause a little bit of a problem for us, because it just stalled us for a couple of extra days, and we were against the clock. You got to remember that this was happening on Friday, and we were trying to get the instruction to the solicitor before the end of Friday, but we weren't actually able to instruct the solicitor because we hadn't got a formal group together. So over the weekend, I made the constitution for the new group, which was basically based exactly off the first constitution, and we decided that we were going to go on Monday morning to set up the new bank account, the community bank account, which I did with a co-signatory, and we put the constitution and the minutes together to make it formalised, and then we started the process of the new GoFundMe and the Facebook group. This was all on the Tuesday, and by the Wednesday all the paperwork was in with the bank, and on the Thursday the co-signatory had finalised it with his signature, and so the bank account became active, and then we could set up the GoFundMe, and we got ready with the new Facebook group and all that stuff. Now on Friday the 1st of November at about 5 o'clock, we received the draft pre-action letter from the barrister, which when I read it I was very pleased, because it read very strongly in my view, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a very interesting case to defend against. I actually think it's stronger than the first one. So that was on the Friday the 1st. So then we had a couple of days break, because it had been quite a hectic week or so. And then on Monday, the pre-action letter had actually been completely finalised and sent off in the morning to the council, and it was received by them with a written confirmation that they'd received it. Now that was on Monday the 4th of November. Now from the moment that the pre-action letter gets sent, that gives the council 2 weeks to reply. So nothing could happen before 2 weeks, which was Monday the 18th, and it's still not even Monday the 18th now. So on Monday the 18th we're expecting the council's response. But until we get the response, no files can actually be lodged with the court, because that would be ahead of the process. Now this is where we were all starting to get very anxious, and we spent that week, the Tuesday and the Wednesday, agitating the barrister and solicitor that we need to get an emergency injunction from the court, because they were going to start the works on the Monday. But the barrister and the solicitor were saying that wasn't going to be possible, because the claim hadn't been filed yet, and so we would essentially be overstepping and misusing the the process, because you can't get an injunction to say you have to halt the works until after the hearing, because there was no hearing, because there was no claim filed yet, if you see what I mean. And this is where it became apparent to us that by the evening of the Friday, that we weren't actually going to be able to get the injunction that we wanted, and that this was also part of the calculations of the council to force it through quicker than we would be physically able to file the papers that would have stopped them. See, that's why it was so frustrating, and that's why it was so annoying. And I had basically resigned myself over the weekend to the fact that that this was going to happen. The council were going to cut up the road on Monday as scheduled, and we weren't ever going to be able to stop them. And the only thing that we would be able to do is go through the court process and then win it, and then see if we can get the council to undo the works, which I just think that they would never do, because they would have so many ways to, get out of that obligation later on down the line. So that was the end of last week that's up to. And in the meantime of that, from Monday the 4th, when the pre-action letter went out, all the way up until the Friday and the Saturday, that's when the Facebook group, the new Facebook group, and the GoFundMe thing went live. We started advertising, we started promoting it, and the donations started pouring in. And by the time we got to the end of that week, we'd already had £5,000 or £6,000, which was very encouraging, as you can understand. Although it didn't change the fact that we had resigned ourselves to the council basically getting ahead of us and starting the works regardless of the legal challenge, which they then obviously went to work at explaining away. They say that it's meritless, and all the trolls online start saying it's frivolous and start saying that we're vexatious litigators and all this stuff, which they have no grounds for calling us that, because they haven't even seen the claim. And the last time we did a claim to take the TRO to court, it won. So what are they even basing this frivolous claim nonsense on? This is just what they say. Anyway, so where are we at? Sunday evening, resigned to the fact that the works would begin, feeling frustrated and disappointed with the lack of injunction success. Now, in the previous few days, there had been a couple of suggestions online that there was going to be some direct action, and this is something that we didn't want anything to do with, and didn't actually respond to favourably or negatively for the first couple of times it was seen. I'd noticed these posts, these suggestions coming up, and I just thought, oh dear, that could be difficult, that could be trouble. And by the time we got round to Monday, it was decided that we should put out a message, the claimant should put out a message in the press and on Facebook and things, just to say to everybody, look, we know that tensions are running high, but any direct action that you do might have a way of compromising or working against the legal case, and to just bear in mind all of the work and the effort and money that's been spent on this so far, and please don't do anything to fuck it all up. And I'd said I don't want anything to do with it, whatever happens, but I mean, also I recognise that it is their right to go and protest. I'm not going to tell anybody that they can't protest, because that would be stupid. The Tuesday morning then, so this is when the news actually started coming through of the successful peaceful protest which had been begun by Sheridan James. And all the people on the Monday, there was videos and pictures, and everyone was uplifted and happy, and it was quite an amazing scene, and I was amazed and uplifted, and that's when I started posting and sharing the pictures that I'd seen. I was like, this is amazing, look at this, they've actually done it. I was worried that they might do something illegal or something like that, but they haven't. Look, it's gone really well, and most amazingly of all, they actually managed to stop the work. So I was completely blown away by that, and naturally, of course, started sharing the news. And within about half an hour, all of the posts that I was putting up started disappearing. I was like, what the hell's going on? The admins are deleting my posts. That's not supposed to happen. And I don't really respond very well to having my posts deleted. I actually hate it. But then they started saying we're not allowed to have any of this stuff on the Facebook group. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's what the Facebook group's for. We're supposed to be sharing news about it. So it caused a little bit of an argument. which is never fun, of course. And my basic premise, my whole sort of principle is that people have a right to know. They have a right to know, and we have a right to tell them what's going on. Just because we tell somebody the news of something isn't us condoning it. That's stupid. You can show a picture of something that happened on Mill Road so that other people can be aware of what happened on Mill Road. But the thing is that the reality of this thing is that people are going to accuse the group of promoting this protest, and that's exactly what's been happening. All of these people online, and Dave Bajan and Sniff the Air and Katie Hawk and all these people are trying to twist it, saying that we are the ones who actually organised the protest, and also they're now accusing me of promoting illegality or criminal behaviour. And I'm just thinking, well, I'm arguing back, saying, what are you even talking about? Firstly, there was no criminal behaviour. Secondly, I never encouraged it, even if there was any. So I don't know how far you're going to get with that. Anyway, so Tuesday, the news of this successful protest began to trickle through the social media. I was amazed and uplifted. I started sharing the posts and pictures about it on Friends of Mill Road Bridge 2. After about half an hour, all my posts had been disappearing. Got a call from the other admins saying that they could not have any of this sort of thing on the Facebook page, which I disagreed with, because I argue that we are there to share information about the bridge and people have a right to know. And more importantly, I was getting so fucked off because I knew that in the absence of being able to show the truth and say what was happening, all of the lies would start spreading and we wouldn't be able to rebut them and refute them. So I was getting quite annoyed. And by the time we got to Tuesday afternoon, having argued over it a bit with the others, I just thought, all right, I'm done here. I need to have a break from this. I'm getting too wound up. And they wanted to have a meeting on the Tuesday, but I didn't want to go because I didn't want to argue again. And I just said, look, I'm having a break. This is getting too much. And they said, okay, we're sorry. See you soon, hopefully. And so anyway, I went that evening with my buddy to the pub to take my mind off it for a bit and just talk about something else. And I went home around 8:30 and I sent an email to the claimant apologising and just saying I understood and I was stepping down from the group for a while because I don't want to deal with, all of the kind of political shenanigans of what you can and can't say and all this stuff and not being able to talk and things. That to me, it's unhealthy, not being able to speak, not being able to express yourself. It gets you twisted up, gets you tied up. And that's why I like speaking and that's why I like writing, because it's a vent, it's a valve. And I'm not here concocting fucking lies and spreading rumours and shit. I'm just telling the truth. It makes me feel better. So anyway, I decided that my kind of my role in the legal side of things had basically been done. It was now in the hands of the barristers. They're good barristers. It's a good, they'll proceed. I don't need to do anything more really. So I stepped off the legal side of it and decided that I was going to go back into my Cambridge cracker behaviour, which is what I was sort of primarily intending to do right from the beginning of this thing. As a journalist, go and follow the news story, find the news, record it, and then share it. So on the Wednesday, I finally got the chance to go down to the protest with my camera in the evening. I recorded the event and witnessed how the whole thing proceeded, how the barriers were unable to be put up, how the workmen packed up and left. That video is on YouTube. And you can see from the video that the whole thing was completely legal. There was no violence, it was peaceful, it was amicable, and it was even enjoyable. There were some police observers there who just stood there and did nothing, because there was nothing for them to respond to. It was all completely okay. I did some interviews, did an interview with a guy from the BBC, talked to some other people. The workmen left around 8:25. We hung around on the pavement until about 9:30, and then a couple of us went for some beer or two in the Swan, and then I went home, and then I stayed up until 2:30 getting the whole video ready. It's very time consuming and quite burdensome actually, getting these videos shared. Like, it's easy to record the videos and go out there and record to my heart's content, but then you end up with all this masses of footage that you have to come back and trawl through and then render and then upload. It takes ages. So anyway, next morning, the next morning after the Wednesday night protest, there was absolutely nothing about it online. I couldn't see it anywhere at all. And I was confused because there were so many cameras around, even the guy from the BBC, and I was like, where is this all happening? So I uploaded my video anyway, and then went to work, and then went back on the evening. This was last night. After work, I didn't take my camera with me this time because, like I said, it's too much work sometimes, and I just wanted to go and see what the fourth night would be like, if it would be a continuation or whatever. And this time there were no workmen at all, there were no policemen at all, there was no council presence whatsoever. It was just the protesters standing around on the pavement, talking, wondering what was going to happen. And obviously there's a couple of times where some people from the public want to come over and say why they think that the bridge should be closed, and there was some arguing and discussing and debating, which usually always, it always ends up turning around with handshakes and people saying, yes, I see your point of view and all that thing. So, it's always quite a positive experience when you go and stand on the street and actually meet people face to face. Anyway, so this is then what happened at the very, very end of last night, which basically leads into the events of this morning. I went into the Swan after everybody left around 9:30, and there's someone in there who I know, and chatted to him for a bit, and then I left at 10:30 and went home. And then at 3 in the morning, the guy who I'd seen in the Swan texted me. My phone went off at 3, and it just said, they are starting the work now. And I was like, oh shit, they've done that. So they waited until 3 a.m. to start, which, when you think about it, is actually quite an obvious tactic. I don't know why anybody didn't think of that. They just waited for everybody to disperse and then did it. So obviously at 3 a.m. no one's awake and no one can respond to any of the messages. So I just was like, oh my god, I sent a message out to everybody I know who's involved with this thing, not expecting any replies or anything like that. I wasn't going to be able to do anything. No one was going to be able to respond. So I was just like, oh, for fuck's sake. They're doing it. And but I still wasn't sure. It wasn't clear whether or not they would actually start working or not, because I remember on the signs it said that the works were going to be at night time and not past 6 a.m. So anyway, I went to bed. I was already in bed. I went back to sleep and then woke up in the morning. This morning, lots of texts, lots of calls, people saying the works have begun. They're digging up the road. There's lots of people angry, lots of people upset. The Mill Road traders have gone over there to try to argue with them, to block them. And then I phoned Roy, because I know that he probably would have been there. I just wanted to see if he was on the scene. It turned out that he was actually inside the middle of the cordon on his scooter making a last stand. He looked like the fucking chap on Tiananmen Square. So anyway, all of this was happening this morning, and it's very frustrating not being able to get like direct news, of course, because on Facebook and social media and things are broken up, and then they always get as well distorted with people trying to lie and twist it and things. So that's decided to just go down there myself with the camera, made the little video update which I've already posted, and that brings me right back round to this present moment that we're in now. This is the 15th of November. Now, this is the important thing. All of that, which I just described, everything that's all just happened, has all happened within the 6-week deadline for us being able to file for review. And it's even before the councils had the opportunity to reply to us, to the pre-action letter. So the pre-action letter response that we're due back from the council isn't due until this Monday coming, Monday the 18th. So we don't even know what their defence is going to be yet. We don't even know if they're going to mount a defence. They might just fold. The point is, we haven't got to that point in time yet, and this is what the 6-week window is for. The actual deadline of the 6-week window is this Friday coming, which is the 22nd. I think. Let me just double check that. Yeah, the 22nd. That's 7 days from today. So we're not actually going to be able to file the papers for judicial review until end of next week, or maybe a couple of days before, if they're working hard to get it done ahead of time. But the time given to us is 6 weeks. That's the lawful time frame that you're allowed to file for review, and all of this work has already begun. And all of this this like mad rush of behaviour from the council causing these protests, and it was the council who caused the protests, by the way. And it is the council who's caused this mess. And then now they've gone ahead and just started the works on Friday morning in the middle of the day, without telling anybody that that's what they were going to do. They just went ahead and did it, causing yet more upset. They're not telling anybody what the works order is. They're not being clear with what powers it is that they're using. They're just bloody doing it. And this is the main complaint, isn't it? That if they had just waited for the statutory time limit to transpire and everything to be done in the formal, legally approved manner, none of this would have happened. And there wouldn't be this mess that they're getting themselves into. And it just seems to me like this is shaping up into, or it has already happened. Like we tried to stop the works from happening for this exact reason, just because of all the mess that it's causing, and the actual trying to get all of these events in a row is a lot of work and a lot of effort, and it's going to be such an interesting case, hearing all of the kind of mangled, elaborate, unexpected excuses that the council is going to be able to come up with to explain all of this behaviour to the judge. Because the basic premise of it is that you are given 6 weeks by law to file for review. And as I point out at the beginning of this video, Sebastian Kindersley even said that the appeal that we have the right to is with the courts, and that is a right that he would even fight to defend. Those were his words. So, where are you now, Sebastian Kindersley? You know, how has this been allowed to happen? It's such a bad look. It is so obviously shenanigans. It's proceeding in a manner which is not. I'm trying to word it in a way which isn't just saying fucking about, which is all they've been doing, breaking the rules and fucking about and getting ahead of the schedule and getting ahead of the statutory process. So it's not even about the bridge anymore. It's about whether or not the county council have got the right to just ram raid stuff through and not give people their statutory rights. And then also all of these bloody online minions and trolls who kind of, gravitate around Dave Bagent, spreading lies and misinformation, trying to blame everything on me. For fuck's sake. This is why I'm saying it's just not going to stick. You can try and blame me for everything all you want, but that's all you do. You are liars. You're a bunch of conniving, misinformation spreading liars. That's what you do. That's your modus operandi. And then when you can't deal with something with actual arguments, you just resort to insults and slagging somebody off, as Katie Hawk did to me on the radio last week. Anyway, where did we get to? I mean, that's it really. I've summed it up. So, yeah. Just looking back at my notes. In amongst all of the events of the past couple of days, of course, these stupid twats online have been trying to cast me as a criminal and a lawbreaker and someone who encouraged illegal activity, which is all completely baseless and untrue, which I may have to actually defend against if they end up deciding to wrap it into their legal defence. Isn't that crazy? You're gonna try and tie me into it, as if I orchestrated those protests or something like that, and it isn't completely obvious that they were organised independently by people of their own volition and of their own accord, which is what people do. When they see that the council's messing around, they'll go and protest about it. Of course they will. Anyway, it's not about me. It's not even about the protests, really. I mean, they're all obviously part of the story now, but the main thing is, obviously, to remind everybody that there is a statutory review pending end of next week, and we have yet to see the council's actual response to that. But this is shaping up to be one hell of an interesting court case indeed. We have struck on to the big time here, boys. You know, I remember saying when they were talking about doing another judicial review, I mean, I really didn't want to do one, just because I remember what it was like before, what it takes out of you, what you have to go through to do it. I really didn't want to do another one. And they said, you know that this one's going to be nothing like the first one. If you do it, it's going to be nothing like it. And that is absolutely true. We haven't even got to the end of the 6-week deadline yet, and look at everything that's happened. Like, what a mess they've made. And how many interesting legal conundrums they've thrown up for the people to scratch their head over and argue over. This is not clear cut. It's not a clear cut thing that the council definitely are within the law in this behaviour. It's very questionable. You know, I would like to see the excuse given to why they feel that they're allowed to skip ahead of the 6-week deadline for judicial review, which Sebastian Kindersley even said we had, and that he would defend. The liar, the lying bastard. Excuse me. I mean, your tensions are running high, and you can hear from my voice that I'm obviously getting upset by all of this stuff. But this is what happens when you start to point accusations at somebody, and you know, and we're really dealing with a very, very high-powered organisation. £500 million organisation, something like that, is what the county council have at their disposal at any given moment. And they've lied so many times, and I've found so many examples of their misbehaviour and even breaches of statute, that it's getting quite tense actually, and you can see why they send out all their minions and trolls to try to dissuade you and discourage you from speaking up. You know, because they're trying to defend or obscure their criminal behaviour. Anyway, I won't go on it too much, because if I ramble on, then it just goes on for too long. So that's what I think. And then, you know, I put all of that out there. No doubt Martin Lucas Smith is going to come in and fucking try to tear the whole thing to pieces, even though everything that I just said there is true. That's all documented. Those are all factual. And but really, it's for you, the observer. If you're affected by the bridge, this is the situation that you're wrapped up in. Okay, and if you're interested in law, and if you're interested in what councils do, or if you're interested in local issues, I've hopefully tried to spell out everything that's just happened in the last few weeks, so that you can kind of be caught up with the thing. It is an interesting situation, and no doubt it will carry on being interesting. And so yeah, let's just wrap it up there with that. As always, well, I will just remind you, and with a quick appeal as well, that if you do want to support the legal challenge, there's a GoFundMe that you can donate to. Just search GoFundMe Friends of Mill Road Bridge 2, and you can donate through there. Otherwise, I'm told that the protesters are going to return there at around 7, probably night after night, just as a show of strength, really. Not that they're going to be able to stop the works from proceeding, but they just want to make their presence known, express their anger, express their grievance, which is of course their democratic right. So if you feel the same and you have time, go down there at 7 o'clock, go down to Mill Road, see it for yourself, talk to the people, talk to the traders, talk to the workmen, make up your own mind, ask questions, read the news, stop listening to anything that Martin Lucas Smith writes or says, and because he is a professional propagandist, he's very, very good at it. It's actually impressive how good he is at twisting things. But I just had to say that because he's been a constant one throughout all of this stuff, and he hates me. So there, even though he's never met me, he just hates everything that I do because I expose his lies and I write against what the council are doing, and so that's why they all hate me. But fuck it. This is William Bennell signing off for Cambridge Cracker. That was the timeline of events. We look forward to seeing what's going to happen next. Thank you.